What? Push-ups are killing my gains? What next? Pull-ups are killing my gains? Oh my goodness. Guys, it's SC Fitness here, and what do you see? A new recording location, that's right. And so today we are going to be reviewing Jeff Cavalier's 30 best dumbbell exercises, and this was a video he posted about a week ago explaining what he thought were his 30 best dumbbell exercises. And without further delay, let's get into it.
You're going to be looking at a bunch of curl variations, but specific reasons why some rank better than others. And I say rank, there is no ranking between the exercises in terms of this one is better than that or this one's better than that. If you want to know that information, guys, make sure you check out our exercises ranked series videos. I'll link those for you at the end of this
he just put
That being said, let's start looking at the curls. And the first thing for me is the standing alternating dumbbell curl. And I've mentioned before, when I'm looking to build my biceps, I don't want to be undermined by a weakness in the core. So I'm not going to move both dumbbells at the same time. We're going to focus on one at a time.
As he's doing, you can do a little bit of that.
Of course, the waiter curl is my favorite exercise for creating that contraction on the biceps in the peak contracted
state. I should think that you should do it either on an incline or a kneeling, because it's just a bit too easy standing up,
at the top of a standing variation here. The cross-body hammer curl now shifts the focus to the brachialis rather than the biceps.
I kind of think I do this exercise, but in a normal curl, so I do the dumbbell adductor curl.
The dumbbell drag curl gives us a chance to hit the biceps long head.
Now
we
he's
do
just
that by
complicating
keeping that arm back into
the drag curls also. I would rather put the incline stretch curl there, but you don't need enough
to
curl.
overload that long head and get some additional
growth.
And of course, the dumbbell weighted chin-up has always been one of my favorite exercises.
Weighted chin-up, this one I agree with.
You take a classic
calisthenic exercise that's difficult for many. You add additional load at your end of your workout, and you can make it more challenging or less challenging depending on level. You can make it assisted or weighted.
And so now we move around to the other side of the arms. We're talking about the triceps. And for me, there's four exercises here I want you to focus on. First and foremost, it's the lying tricep extension.
Lying tricep extension, but the problem is some people, when they do this, their anatomy can't quite hold up, and so basically, they feel a lot of pain when they do this exercise.
The next one's the dumbbell
so I feel like it's not very
Unlike the tricep extension, this one actually doesn't have that long head stretch, but what it does do is it gives you a chance to load the exercise up. And when we're talking about building bigger triceps without machines and without barbells, this is going to give you a chance to actually use heavier dumbbells and get the overload that's going to be able to create the size you're looking for. Of course, we keep it going here with something completely on the light end of the spectrum.
The kickbacks, I feel like and I know a lot of people are like, there's no way that that's one of the best exercises of all time. But yes, it is, because it is actually one of the very few exercises that would place that long head of the triceps in its peak contracted state. So while the stretch exercises do a great job of putting it in that stretch position, the peak contracted state is one we don't want to ignore either, and the dumbbell kickback does that phenomenally. The last exercise, that's going to be the dumbbell incline power bomb. When we do it in the incline I can see this. This could be an overhead extension. So why is he calling it a power bomb? I don't know, but you can call this just the dumbbell overhead extension.
Stretch on the long head that makes this the great exercise.
But I agree on the long head.
And so now let's go back to something else, like the back. My favorite back exercises with dumbbells are going to lead off with a row. But you know I don't like kneeling
the dumbbell row
on a bench, because I talk about the increased hernia risk by doing that. But we do have the dumbbell tripod row.
Yeah, you can do it standing up.
The opportunity to keep our feet
you don't have to do it on the bench
without changing the mechanics of the exercise.
Just make sure your head is facing in a way so that your back is straight. That's all you have to do. Make sure your back is straight.
The next one here is the dumbbell pullover. And we talk about this one actually
this is actually a very good exercise. I kind of first, like, you guys probably think I hate the pullover, but I think the pullover is actually a very good exercise, and I feel like it works the chest and back, so that's a good balance. That's rare for any exercise to do.
A nice, good stretch reflex on the lats in the bottom position. You don't have to go down incredibly low if you have a problem with your shoulders. You can still get an amazing lat stretch, especially if you drop your hips on this. It's one of my favorite exercises when you're trying to build bigger lats. Then we go into the next exercise here, which is the dumbbell high pull. And this is definitely one of my favorite exercises because it's the anti-upright row. You see, instead of having those wrists trailing those elbows as you would on an upright row, I've talked about the importance of just flipping that orientation around and getting those elbows underneath the wrists. And it's an all-important difference because external rotation is replacing internal rotation. And of course, just like with the chin-up, you can't forget the weighted pull-up when it comes to building bigger lats.
Yes, weighted pull-up.
And that brings us to the legs. And
it's
guys,
a corrective calisthenics exercise, and I feel like you can really adjust it. The thing is, if these are too hard for you, you can just put you can put an assist band there to make it easier. I know I'm bending the rules a little bit, but an assist like band is actually very affordable and very accessible.
People think that you can't really build your legs without a barbell. That's not true. You can take the right dumbbell exercises and load them up and actually start building your legs pretty damn well. And the first exercise here that proves that is the dumbbell Bulgarian split squat. It happens to be my all-time favorite leg exercise when it comes to utilizing just dumbbells. It's a multi-dimensional exercise, but importantly, it's one that can be overloaded very successfully with just dumbbells and still create the muscle growth you're looking for. But of course, a bench is not required to make an effective exercise for your legs. I can stand up and do a reverse lunge.
Yeah, I agree. You can put so much weight on a reverse lunge.
By stepping backward,
I can take away some of that anterior stress on the knee
and still cause the overloading growth.
And also, you can put so much so that you feel.
I could also do something called the dumbbell offset lunge, because what I can do is challenge the body in a little bit different plane.
Okay, so you're basically not counterbalancing.
Have some more hip involvement.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of redundant because it feels like not the offset lunges are kind of like redundant to have when you have the reverse lunge, because it's basically without counterbalancing, meaning that it's a downgraded version because you're not counterbalancing and getting the gains on both sides, as even when you're doing like a lunge on one side, you're also getting gains on the other side. So honestly, I think if you're doing this, I don't recommend it, and you should hold a second dumbbell in your hand because you can still get a little bit of the benefit by counterbalance.
Through more control of the abductors of the hip, and for that, it's going to belong here as its own entry into the best exercises. And of course, the last exercise here would be the dumbbell RDL. And when it comes to training the hamstrings, this one gives us a chance to get that same stretch benefit that we would from, let's say, the pullover applied here to the hamstrings, giving us a chance to tie them in also to glute function, to hip extension.
Very good.
Another great exercise here, and all these round out the best selections for legs. And that brings us to the chest here, guys. When we're talking about chest, there are definitely a lot of...
I'm going to say that overall this list hasn't been bad, but honestly, there's not much of the glutes right there. And I feel like he should include more of the glutes. And he doesn't have much explosive exercises for the legs. Like I would say also include jump squats or some kind of squatting motion, because the squat is one of the most essential movement in any exercise. You can find it in other exercises, the squat. You should master that fundamental movement.
Dumbbell exercises at your disposal, but what are the best ones? In my opinion, here they are. Right up off the bat here, guys, it doesn't get any more basic than the dumbbell bench press. And while, of course, you can increase the intensity via a bunch of different intensifying techniques, at its root level, doing this exercise has got to be one of the staples in your arsenal when you're trying to build 100%. A bigger chest. And of course, we could add some weight to another classic exercise too to increase its benefits, and we're talking about the weighted dip. This is one of my favorite exercises, particularly
but I feel like
get the mechanics right,
more for the
lean my body more forward and allow this to help me build a bigger lower chest.
This is more of a
the dumbbell floor fly is the only fly endorsed here by Athlean-X'S, and for good reason.
I feel like the bench fly is not very effective because you have to use lighter weight. And then the floor fly is kind of not effective because you don't get as much of that overload, of the eccentric overload in your chest, or the EMG is less on the floor flies than the bench flies. So I feel like you don't need the floor flies or the bench fly. I feel like you should do some kind of crossover. I like the dumbbell low to high crossover. as it's more effective to
the
me.
value and the benefit of doing the exercise unsupported, not to mention the fact that it's oftentimes compromised in terms of the weight that you can use. When we utilize the floor as we do in a floor fly, I'm able to increase the load that I have in my hands here that's going to actually more effectively overload the eccentric and give me a better muscle building option.
On your chest.
The dumbbell squeeze press is going to introduce an additional stress of the isometric
incline bench
adduction,
press
and we're
is way
talking
better.
about the best of the best in trying to eke out more muscle gains from the exercises you're doing. This is a great option for you.
You don't need this exercise. I feel like incline bench press is way better. You don't need the dumbbell squeeze press, honestly. You've got a good core with a bench press, incline bench press, and the crossovers, and boom, you're done. You can add the push-up also in. And then you're kind of done with the chest. I feel like you don't need to add the squeeze press.
To do that. And of course, it doesn't end here without including that pullover again. Yes, the pullover. Because as I said before, the way you do the exercise matters. And when you incorporate a much tighter arm position and squeeze your arms together, adduct them as hard as you can at the top of the exercise,
and it's very redundant.
Focus
Put a
from the
pullover
lats
already.
to the upper chest, making this another option, particularly for those that don't have access to an incline bench.
Upper chest.
And moving on here, we now have to talk about our shoulders. And of course, we have 3 different heads of the shoulders, and we're going to have to pick some exercises to get the job done across the entire shoulder. But let's start with one of my favorite. It's called the dumbbell scoop press.
Why?
What the scoop press does, it almost
You
starts
don't need to
as
work your
a
front delt to get the
exercise
shoulder.
that then transitions into a front delt, middle delt press overhead. So, of course, I love the pressing exercises for shoulders. They're the best of the best, and we always have to do them. But this one just gives me an option to get that front delt, a little additional work before it enters into that middle delt, front delt combination press. The next exercise is called the dumbbell hip hugger, which does a great job of actually placing both the rear delt and the middle delt in that contracted state. And you'll notice as I'm pulling the dumbbells up as if I'm trying to almost pull up a pair of pants that have fallen too low. I'm getting a bit of abduction at the shoulder as my arm drifts away from me. And again, getting the arm into extension, which is going to light up that rear delt. When it comes to the middle delt, though, there is no exercise for me that I like better than the dumbbell cheat lateral. I've talked about before the benefits of sometimes just going a lot heavier than usual. And
no, this is terrible information. Just this part, because you're basically cheating the motion. You're cheating the motion, and you can actually get elbow tendonitis, shoulder pain. That can happen from cheating the motion, and basically impingement, which can even develop into a tear if it's ignored. I feel like this can lead to an enormous amount of muscle damage, cheating, injuries also. Once you just, do you see how there's almost no control
around a little bit, with the idea being not to have the
and
prettiest looking concentric part of the exercise, but to have the most effective eccentric part of the exercise, which is a great driver of growth when we're looking for new drivers of muscle size in the shoulders. Keeping with that same theme there, if I pick up those heavy dumbbells, I can move them a lot more effectively if I use
redundant. Again, you already had the scoop press. Why do you need the push press? I don't know.
Use some of that momentum, in this case, with a push press instead of, let's say, a regular press. When it's the front delt specifically that I'm trying to target, there's nothing better than the classic dumbbell front raise. There's nothing pretty about it, but what I do try to do is split this up into one side at a time.
You don't need the front raises. I feel like you should have the shoulder press, the bench press, and everything else that focuses a lot on the front delt of the shoulder. You don't need another front delt exercise like the front raises. I'd rather focus on the rear delt and the side delts or the medial delt. You don't need the front raises.
Front of my body and not rely on too much momentum, because here I'm trying to make that front delt do the work and not necessarily have it bleed over into the other heads of the delts. And the same thing would go here when we're talking about the rear delt.
I agree with this.
I want to do something that can effectively target the rear delt as much as possible. This is the dumbbell rear delt row. The key here again is to get that arm back into extension behind the body, the main driver of getting the rear delt activation that we're looking for and the size that we're looking for in that rear head. Of course, we have one of my favorite move the dumbbell around exercises, and it's the dumbbell over and back. I like to load this one up. Just simply pull it from one shoulder up and overhead to the other shoulder. It's a variation, obviously, of a press, but it's something unique if you haven't done it before, and it is a great overload exercise and one capable of packing on some additional size to those delts of yours. And then it seems like with every single list we have, there's always that one thing that sort of falls as an outlier. It doesn't really fit in any one category.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean that we don't do it. For me, that's the dumbbell carry. And again, there's a lot of different ways you can do this exercise, and it does a lot of different things.
As it's a full body
not only
core
your fortitude,
exercise,
but it tests your grip strength, it tests your stamina, it tests your ability to kind of grind out a few extra steps when you don't want to grind out any more steps. Guys, I love the exercise. It's definitely one that's going to help you to bulk up your forearms and your traps. Make sure you do it if you're looking to round out the development of your entire body.
If I was going to have the wrist curl, I would include
and so now I have a very
for the
important
calf
question
or
for
the
you.
wrist curl. And I feel like this is very redundant. It started out fine, but it ended a bit bad.
Alright guys, so I decided the most logical thing was to do my take on this. As first here I'm showing you Jeff Cavalier's 30 best dumbbell exercises. These were in the video, and these were directly taken off his description, as we have a lot of good exercises. We start off with the waiter curl and we end off with the dumbbell carry, as I feel like this is the exact list, and there are some commonalities, as you'll see later, between us and Jeff Cavalier. So right now here you're seeing my 30 best dumbbell exercises, as the ones which are checked off are the exercises that Jeff Cavalier and I selected. As you may wonder, some of these exercises actually are not called by the same name, but because I decided that they have a close enough motion, and if you look at the range of motion, they are almost exactly identical or identical. Like for example, we have right here the tripod rows, which was in Jeff Cavalier's, and now I call them the dumbbell rows. I should have called them the single arm rows, but they basically, you can do them with a bench or without a bench. We have also like the waiter curls, of course. He had them kneeling, I had them on the ground, but you can do them kneeling. As well as the dumbbell adductor curl, you can also do as a hammer curl, or you can do it the conventional method. And finally, the dumbbell curl, you can do it either alternating or both at the same time. So it really kind of depends. So all in all, we have about exactly 16 exercises out of the 30 that we both agree on, but a lot of them were similar, hitting similar muscle groups, as I feel like some of them selections were very good from Jeff Cavalier, some of them were very bad, and this is kind of my own personal take. So no one is perfect, like, you guys can have your own opinion, and that's what matters. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, push that notifications button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.